Hello, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about our first key term of the semester, rhetorical situation. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview and kind of introduce you to the term. We'll talk a little bit about an example, and then I'm going to give you some good next steps for continuing to explore this concept. We will be talking about this concept a lot throughout the semester, so you will become very familiar with it, but this video's purpose is just to introduce you to the concept of rhetorical situation. So, let's talk first about sort of the big picture for this term. We've talked a little bit in our intro video about a goal for the semester being that we all become successful composers. And one of the most important parts of being a successful composer is understanding the context of our compositions, the why, the who, and the how, whenever we're composing and whenever we're viewing compositions as viewers or readers. We need to be aware of the context of those things. That's what rhetorical situation does for us. It's a concept that talks about context. So, what is rhetorical situation? The Bedford Book of Genres, our textbook for this semester, defines it as the context in which you create a composition. That's on page 5, and you'll read the chapter that came from later this week. Lloyd Bitzer was a rhetorician and a communications theorist, and he was really curious about these particular situations, the context that we compose in, and he wanted to understand them better, so he researched and wrote about them. And his conception of rhetorical situation is really what we now view as the sort of defining moment for this term. So how did he define it? What did he explore? He described 3 aspects of rhetorical situation. The first was the exigence. I know this term is probably unfamiliar to you, and that's fine. How we define exigence is that it's the purpose for the composition. In the Bedford Book of Genres and throughout our course, we'll probably use the term exigence and purpose pretty interchangeably. So again, the exigence is the why. It's why we're composing. Next, the second aspect is the audience. The audience is whoever is going to receive the message of the composition. It's the who behind our composing. That's probably a more familiar term. The constraints, again, probably more unfamiliar, but the constraints are essentially just factors that limit or influence the composition in any way. It's the how behind our composition. It might be the way that you're communicating a message, either through email or posting on a discussion board, in a face-to-face conversation. All of these different things, situations, have different constraints that will influence how you're going to communicate. So let's look at an example together because I think that's really the best way to learn about rhetorical situation. So for this example, I'm going to lay out a particular rhetorical situation, and then we're going to analyze it together. We're going to look at the 3 aspects of this particular rhetorical situation. So the situation I've laid out here is that I am a student in ENC2135, and I have a question about the course calendar for this class. I'm concerned about the deadline for major project 2 because it's the same weekend as my brother's wedding. So I need to email the instructor. So that's the situation that we're looking at. So let's analyze the 3 aspects of that situation. So first, the exigence. What's my purpose? What do I need to do? I want to notify my professor of this situation, and I want to discuss a strategy for completing the assignment. That's my purpose. That's why I need to communicate. My audience is my instructor. That's a pretty straightforward one. A lot of times audience is a lot more complex. We might have an intended audience and an actual audience. It's a lot of different moving parts. But for this particular example, because I'm sending an email, it's pretty straightforward. I'm emailing my instructor. They're my audience. And then let's talk about the constraints. Email has some constraints, some things that it can't do, and it has some affordances, some things that it can do that maybe face-to-face conversation couldn't. So let's talk first about a constraint. First, in an email, I'm limited to written words. I can't explain myself verbally or with body language. So I need to be really clear and concise in my language. But there is something I can do. I can include hyperlinks in an email to the course calendar or an image attachment, maybe of the wedding invitation, if I need to provide that kind of proof for my instructor in order to move a deadline. Hint, you don't have to do that with me, just email me. But these are some things that I can do in a digital medium like email. So again, what we've just done is to look at a particular rhetorical situation, and then we've pulled out and identified the exigents, the audience, and the constraints for that particular situation, okay? And this is a rhetorical situation for this particular moment of communication. Like I said, this is just the beginning of us talking about this. We will continue to discuss rhetorical situation throughout the semester, and you're going to do some reading this week that's going to continue to help you develop this particular concept. So your next step is to read the Bedford Book of Genres, Chapter 1, Rhetorical Situations and Choices, pages 5 through 15. In this particular chapter, they're going to introduce you to this topic. They're going to teach you about this topic in the context of composing itself, so how you can think about rhetorical situation as a composer, and how you can think about rhetorical situation as a reader. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next little bit, is talking about this. Again, it's going to come out throughout the semester. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and I look forward to seeing you online this week.